Hello, sir or ma'am. My name is Gio Potasio, and welcome to my podcast. People usually like to name their podcasts, but in my case, I think I'm not gonna go with any name. On second thought, I'd like to name my podcast podcast.exe. Yes, I am very original, and that should be a meme. Oh wait, it already is. Anyways, all that aside, welcome again to my podcast. Today, I'll be talking about the grade 7 class and the flow of communication that occurs in the class. That includes the teacher, Sir Brack, or Brax. Apologies, I don't remember the exact name of the teacher. The first thing that I noticed when I walked into that class that day was that it was quite loud. Lots of classes were going on besides this class, and the accumulated noise created a huge barrier between the teacher and students. Grade 7 is a class of kids around age 13 or below, if my math is correct. The topic being discussed by the teacher that day was the scientific method. The teacher asked a few questions on the topic, and from what I saw that day, was that not many of the students knew about the scientific method. Either that, or a lot of them had a lack of confidence, which can be considered a barrier in oral communication. When your mind doesn't allow you to speak, no words can be encoded, and so little interaction can be made between the students and the teacher. Speaking of encoding, one thing I remember that day was the teacher called a student up front to explain how you can use scientific method to cook noodles. Yes, noodles, pancit canton, yakisoba, you name it. This is not a sponsor. If I were to explain, I'd say that his answer to the question was unclear. From my angle, it seemed that he had trouble encoding his ideas into a clearer message, which caused him to quote-unquote fail the exercise. And by fail, I mean that he was just sent back to his seat and the teacher called upon another student. The second student didn't get it exactly right either, but everyone got the idea of how scientific method worked. Well, not everyone. After this sort of exercise, the teacher conducted the quiz. The goal of this quiz was for the students to write a real-life experience that scientific method can be applied to. Now here we waited for around 10 minutes before they were finished, but during that 10 minutes, I guess I figured out that there could be another barrier to communication. See, I was with two classmates of mine, whom I shall not name because this video is public, and one of them fell asleep. I'll even flash a nice photo of him. If anything, I'd say he couldn't get as much information as me and my other classmate did. And I guess that could be counted as a barrier, since information cannot be sent towards an unconscious person. That unless you drug him in a certain way, which here is definitely not the case. After the estimated 10 minutes have passed by, it was time for the teacher to check on the students. Around two people volunteered to explain to the class what real-life situation they have in mind. I personally did not like one of the answers, but hey, it's science. Whatever floats your boat. Or sinks it. Haha. I'm kidding, of course. On a side note, I'm trying hard not to make my voice monotonous, but the recording just ends up that way. And then, the teacher called upon the students at the back. Let's just say it was not a pretty sight. Surprise, surprise, the students in the back were not listening and were not able to answer the quiz, which can be named another barrier, the lack of interest. And then, the teacher, we interrupt this podcast with an intermission. Please, sit back and enjoy. And then the teacher scolded them. It's common sense. The teacher scolded them. The scolding took place in a number of steps. Step 1. The teacher calls out those who are not able to answer the quiz. Step 2. The teacher makes them stand up. Step 3. The teacher asks why they were not able to answer the quiz. There is an optional step for when the students try to answer the question, but the teacher will not care anyway, because either way, they were not able to answer. Step 4. The teacher reminds them that they are grade 7 and not grade 6, a classic line that I've heard for too many times. Step 5. The teacher makes them sit down. Step 6. The teacher continues to explain that you are insert grade here and should know better. At this point, the class was already dismissed. That's all I have to say for now. Thank you for listening, and see you in the next activity my teacher's gonna give me.